What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode on my channel. As always, I'm Jay, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Ridley Scott's sci-fi epic Blade Runner, starring Harrison Ford, which was released in the 1980s and recently had its sequel, Blade Runner 2049, released this past weekend, which I also had the pleasure of seeing. Now, the one I'm going to be referring to in this review, with spoilers mind you, is going to be the final cut of the film, because that is said to be the definitive version of Ridley Scott's vision, where he was able to include extended footage which was taken out preemptively by the studio back in the 1980s, as well as the expulsion of terrible narration and a horrifyingly bad happy ending, which was not tonally in keeping with the film overall. So without further ado, guys, I am going to do my review. If you have not seen the film, I recommend watching it before you watch this review, but if you don't care about that, let's get started. So the film follows Deckard, who was a retired police officer who actually hunted replicants and actually retired them or destroyed them. So basically what happens is he's brought out of retirement to hunt several models of the Nexus 6 generation made by the Tyrell Corporation, because they have started to become emotionally unstable after escaping slave labor on Mars. Now, when they come back to Earth, they are trying to basically expand their lifespan. Unfortunately, they can't without actually going and taking information by force. But due to their instability emotionally, they are very dangerous, and Deckard needs to put them down fast. So basically throughout this film, we see a lot of philosophies about what makes a human, what makes a robot, and kind of where the line is blurred, if you will. Emotionally, are their memories theirs? And we even have kind of a little moment where we're looking at the main character himself, and we question, is he a human or is he also a replicant? But we don't know for sure for a good portion of the film, and even at the end, we're left with kind of an ambiguous ending as to whether he is or not. Because as it's stated, replicants in the film are implanted with memories that aren't actually theirs. So even though they might remember certain things, those were all implants, and they are made to make them feel more emotionally stable and sound, and also to make them be more humanistic, if you will. But aside from that, this film was so great for its time. And you know what, again, I did not see the original cuts, but for this film right here, the way that everything was set up, and I could tell which ones were kind of, older effects and everything, and they were very well done for the time period. And one of the things that I can say about this is that it created a whole grand world, if you will. The city of Los Angeles, I believe it is, or the city that Deckard's in, is so vibrant and colorful. And you can tell that a lot of different places have kind of drawn inspiration from these concepts and visuals, including Ghost in the Shell, and I would even argue Cowboy Bebop, which was another one of my favorite animes growing up. Not only were the visuals great, but the actual soundtrack itself was very reminiscent of a lot of different films and animes. Like I said, again, the soundtrack was very rich and very beautiful. I found myself having sort of a real reaction to the music that was being played, and it was reflecting very well kind of the inner monologues that would be going on with each of the characters that was playing, especially Deckard at many points in the film where he's just kind of standing there and sitting there silently, but you can tell that he's having deep reflective moments. Now, aside from the visuals and the music of the film itself, there was not really a lot of action going on, so it did feel like it was dragging at certain points, and even then the action kind of seemed like it was getting a little bit bogged down. I feel like the film could have easily been chopped down by maybe 15-20 extra minutes, but it is still a great film nonetheless. And when we get to the ending, it was a little bit anticlimactic, mostly for the fact that we're having this fight between Roy Batty, who was the main bad guy played by Rutger Hauer, and we're having Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, in kind of this one-sided battle, and he's kind of running away. Then all of a sudden we see Roy Batty actually saving Deckard from a fall that he would have had and pulling him up, in which he actually just gives like a little bit of an informational kind of monologue to him, and just tells him, he says, all the things that I have seen, and I'm going to be dying, basically. And he's talking about how his memories are going to be lost like tears in the rain, which is very poetic. And that's one of the things that I credit this film for, is being very poetic and very philosophical on many different fronts. Not just doing the typical dystopian future or machines taking over for humans type of gag. Because in this film, they're not really taking over for humans. They are kind of the subservient subset, if you will. And, the cyborgs, the replicants, are used for many duties amongst slave labor and pleasure models, like they said, and for entertainment purposes and everything. And a lot of different things are synthetic, if you will, inside of the film, including different animals. So you can imagine that this futuristic world essentially thrives off of synthetic things that were made for the populace, if you will. The story was very enthralling, and even though it was a noir type setup, it did make for some very interesting plot. I really did enjoy the performances by the cast members. Harrison Ford was great as Deckard. Sean Young was great as Rachel, and this is one of her first roles from what I can understand, and she did very well. She played kind of the naive, kind of the emotionally immature replicant that she was, but it did end up working out very, very well for the story and whatnot. There were some questionable things in there that people like to mention, such as, Deckard basically forcing himself upon her and all these other things. But, it's a very tough thing whenever you're watching this, especially with the way that the setting is and how the characters are. I wouldn't say it was quite rape, but it was still very kind of cringy and creepy, at least for a couple moments, until you realize that she really does have an emotional attachment and connection with him, and vice versa. Overall, yeah, I had to watch the film a couple times, really, to kind of gain my footing with it, to really fully understand and grasp. It's kind of like any really good film, you do need to watch a couple times. And, I watched it with some people who were actually on their phones, and they were completely lost and thought the film sucked. But, honestly, it was a great buy. I'm glad that I ended up buying it. And I did end up buying it and watching it because the Blade Runner 2049 trailer dropped, and I was kind of enticed by this world. I wanted to understand it because I knew I wanted to see what Blade Runner 2049 had to offer with Ryan Gosling and everything. So overall, I was pleasantly surprised. If you want to get the Blu-ray or anything, I'm sure that there's going to be some special editions now that Blade Runner 2049 has come out. But you can find the Blu-ray DVD combo pack somewhere along, the $5 to $10 bins at your local Best Buy or Walmart, I'm sure. And it is a great purchase. The movie looks fantastic, and the transfer was actually very well done from the different clips that I've compared it to on YouTube and whatnot. And overall, for this film right here, I would give it a solid 3.5 out of 5 stars. Again, it raises such great philosophical questions, and the story and the plot is very original. Albeit the runtime is a little bit longer, but what movie nowadays doesn't tend to be that way? And it is for sure a great palate kind of tester for what's going to come in the Blade Runner 2049 film, the sequel to the original film. And one of the things I can say about this film is it did a great job of laying the foundation and the groundwork for some even more expansive nature in the next film. But that's for my second review, which will be Blade Runner 2049, and I hope you guys catch that right on my channel. And as always, guys, I am out of time, but like, comment, subscribe, leave the feedback down below. Tell me what you thought of Blade Runner if you've seen it, or are you looking to see it? Let me know your thoughts on it either way. Leave it all at the bottom, even if it's negative. And until next time, guys, I'm Jay. Take care. Bye.